because the Soviet Union was a state made up of 15 different republics that later all became independent in 1991. But in the period of the Soviet Union, its international influence was huge, and it represented an economic, political, ideological alternative to Western states, including the U.S. Well, Ukraine was one of the constituent parts of the Soviet Union, so at that point there was no difference in policy between the Soviet government in Moscow and the Ukrainian government in Kiev. It was just as if you were thinking about the relationship between New York State and the United States in terms of policy. In terms of foreign policy, it was the same, and obviously in the Soviet Union, the degree of political freedom of the different republics was much less than it would be for a state in the U.S. context.
What happened is in the 1930s there was a famine artificially created by Stalin, who killed between 6 and 10 million people in Ukraine. So this was the heartland, central and southern and eastern Ukraine. This is where most of the people died.
People are very worried. People are afraid of war. And people, right now it's a springtime, so they start to plant the potatoes. So they plant a lot of potatoes and some other stuff because they are afraid if it's going to be war, it's going to be starvation.
The red flag came down over the Kremlin tonight as President Gorbachev resigned and brought to an end 7 decades of communist rule in the Soviet Union. Right to the last, Mr. Gorbachev said he was unhappy at the breakup of the country, but he pledged to do everything he could for the new Commonwealth of Independent Republics.
Okay, so when the Soviet Union collapsed, both for Russia and for Ukraine, as well as the other republics, sort of 3 important changes took place. One was an explicit commitment to adopt a democratic political system as opposed to an authoritarian political system, which has not happened, but that was at least the commitment. An explicit commitment to move from socialist economics or command-style economics to market-style economy. And then third was commitment in terms of international relations to sort of try and reintegrate with the rest of the world rather than developing as a separate kind of, we would call it autarkic system, where it tried to remain isolated from the rest of the world. So all 3 of those changes were huge and were taking place simultaneously, both in Russia and in Ukraine when the Soviet Union collapsed.
He's crazy man, and he's a mafia. He's a criminal, and his party and his family, what they did, they just wrap Ukraine. They wrap Ukraine, and people, the normal people, they have no jobs. They have no money to buy bread for the table. They have no money to support their families. Why are millions and millions of people left Ukraine to look for the job all over the world, all over the world. When Ukraine became to have a freedom from after the Soviet Union was broke, it was 55 million of Ukrainian in Ukraine. Right now it's 46. So.
It's probably worth knowing that there's considerable difference of opinion in various regions of Ukraine. So in the extreme sort of southwest, in the areas around Lviv and Galicia, they're very pro-Western. They weren't part of the Russian Empire for a considerable period of time. They were part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and then they were part of Poland in the interwar period. So these areas are very anti-Russian generally. The areas in the south and east tend to be more sympathetic to Russia. There's a higher percentage of ethnic Russians there, although outside Crimea, the majority are ethnic Ukrainians. But Russian tends to be the dominant language, and they sort of associate themselves more with Russia. So
Не дивлячись на все, я хочу заявити, і щоб це почула вся Україна, ми здатні захистити право виборця. Ми здатні захистити український закон. Ющенко!
Ukraine should join the European Union, and I feel that they should have been part of NATO a long time ago. Had they been part of NATO, Putin would not have dared touch an inch of Ukraine.
at this point, Russia seems to be successfully destabilizing the government, making it impossible for them to have a successful election next month, making it more difficult for them to pursue any economic reforms. So the economic situation is getting worse, which makes people even more unhappy. So I don't see an easy resolution to this.
Ukraine must join European Union, must join NATO to be protected and to keep the freedom and to be free in the world. Last Friday we went to the shrine of Marian Cope and we pray near to her relic because she is a saint of Syracuse, and we ask her protection, her prayers for Ukraine. And we did a peaceful protest near to the city hall like 4 times. Even a mayor, Stephanie, came to us and she was with us.
The Ukrainian, the native of Kiev. And now I am on Maidan, on the central part of my city. I want you to know why thousands of people all over my country are on the streets. There is only one reason. We want to be free from a dictatorship. We want to be free from the politicians who work only for themselves, who are ready to shoot, to beat, to injure people just for saving their money, just for saving their houses, just to saving their power. I want these people who are here, who have dignity, who are brave, I want them to live a normal life. We are civilized people, but our governments are barbarians. That's not a Soviet Union. We want our courts not to be corrupted. We want to be free.
Look what's going on with Ukraine. You understand what I mean?
Yeah.